All right. So, having gone through the pleasantries, let's begin the class. Like I said, this class is a class in microeconomics, the economics of small units, the economics of the components of the economic, the actors in the economy that add up to the macroeconomic system. Here, we're going to be dealing with markets. We're going to be dealing with pricing, not prices, but with pricing. We're going to be dealing with production. We're going to be dealing with decisions made by individuals, individuals meaning persons, individuals meaning hospitals, individuals meaning the bodega by the neighborhood, individuals meaning the manufacturing company, individuals meaning the hospital. These are the various units that make up the entire economy. And this is what we're going to be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with market structures, markets for goods and services, and how they function, how they interact with each other. That is what microeconomics is going to be about. Now, all the lectures for each unit will be, I will use PowerPoint slides, and I will simply go through the PowerPoint slides. And if you have questions, if you need clarification, I will respond to them. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So in today's lecture, we will go through the first 3 chapters of the book. Okay. We'll go through the first 3 chapters. So I will go through a slideshow. Okay. And as you would see in your book, economics is the study of how humans make choices under conditions of scarcity. And again, here, economics generally is about, decision making under conditions of scarcity. And scarcity simply means that human beings have wants and human beings have needs, but our capacity to produce sufficiently to satisfy those needs and wants is limited. But again, as I often say, one say that we have scarcity. Well, everybody faces scarcity. Trump is a billionaire, but he faces scarcity. Like I would say it when I was young, growing up in Nigeria, they say a big man, big trouble. In the sense that he has a private jet. Well, do you need private jets to be moving around? The answer is no. But that simply means also that he has to produce the resources, and so he has to use that private jet judiciously. Otherwise, he's going to run out of resources to be able to operate it. The ordinary person faces scarcity. You cannot produce everything that you need or you want. This goes to what we say when we do a little bit of advanced economics, and we'll talk about utility functions. We say utility functions are, illustrated in such a way that our utility functions are such that we have what we call local non-satiability, which simply, in simple terms, means that the more you have, the more you want. And so you will never be able to satisfy all your needs and all your wants. One illustration that I have seen in economics literature is where somebody shows 2 examples. Way back about 200 years ago, wealthy people had carriages, horse-drawn carriages, and only wealthy people could afford those horse-drawn carriages. And then they show another picture of somebody in a Ford Escort. A Ford Escort is a small car. You know what a Ford Escort looks like, but a Ford Escort is a car for the ordinary middle-class people, not wealthy people. And so the question, the humor in the question was, would you prefer to be a wealthy man 200 years ago or 250 years ago, or a middle class person today? Because if you were a wealthy man then, you had a horse-drawn carriage. If you're a middle class person today, you could afford only a Ford Escort. And so the more we have, the more we want. So that is essentially what economics is about. It's about decision-making under conditions of scarcity. It's about making choices under conditions of scarcity. Our choices are constrained. Constrained in the sense that, if we decide to have more of one thing, we might have to forfeit something else. We might have to forfeit something else because if we earn income, the income is the first constraint. Okay, income is the first constraint in the sense that if you spend all your income, you cannot go any further. Okay, so in that case, in every economic system has to make three decisions. And one is what to produce, the other is how to produce, and for whom to produce. Now, for whom to produce is really where we have the big issue, which is really an issue about distribution. Okay, what to produce, of course, we produce for whom, and when we decide for whom, then we know what. How to produce, do you use more labor, do you use more capital, what instruments of production are you going to employ? It depends again on what is to be produced. As I explained at the beginning, macroeconomics studies the economy as a whole and focuses on broad goals, very broad goals like growth, unemployment, inflation. Those are the issues that are addressed in macroeconomics. Micro focuses on the actions of individuals that interact within the economic system, like households, workers, businesses. Okay, and of course, enterprises. The church, for example, is a microeconomic unit. One of the fascinating things, or one of the things that impressed me when I entered the School of Business in the early 1970s was my professor said, "What is a business?" I said, "A church is a business, a school is a business," in the sense that you apply management and economics analysis skills to these entities. All right. So, like I said, well, this lecture and on all lectures in this class will be very brief. If you have questions, you answer them. I mean, if you have questions, you ask your questions, and I will answer them. Once more, best repetition to say that we are looking at choices under conditions of scarcity, and so you understand then that everything that you do, every choice that you make has an opportunity cost. Every choice you make has an opportunity cost. You choose to rest, sleep, there's an opportunity cost. How much would you have earned if you went out working? But at the same time, the fact that your energy level is limited means you have to make a choice. You have to balance between resting, between leisure and production. Okay, and all decisions are made at the margin. If you take one more step, if you spend one more hour working, what is going to be your earning? That is at the margin. And again, what will be the opportunity cost of that work? What if you exhaust your energy? Is it worth it to go and strain your energy because you might then break down and the cost of taking care of yourself will be higher than what you're going to earn? And so at the breaking point or at the margin, you make a decision whether to strain yourself some more or whether you go out there and earn some more money because it's valuable to you. Now, in any economic system, there is specialization. Okay, there's specialization, and so um, it's better to specialize and be more productive and then trade. And so and there are gains from trade. There are gains from trade in the sense that if you produce a whole lot more than you need, then you can trade your surplus with somebody else's surplus. And the whole objective in any kind of production system is to use resources efficiently to achieve not only individual objectives, but also the objectives of the entire society. Our own perspective is that markets usually lead to efficiency, and markets are simply units where individuals or participants interact, and price is an incentive, and so that's where exchanges take place. And a market does not have to be a particular location; it will just be a system where exchange is taking place. In order to study economics, we use models. Okay, we use models. We use mathematical models. We can use graphical models, representations. And a model usually allows us to observe and understand, in the sense that when you create a model, you use symbols to indicate interaction. And a model has to be simplified in such a way that there are variables that explain what happens to the activity that you want to describe or you want to understand. A model of, say, an engine, okay? We simply show fuel that creates energy and how much energy is created and what is the objective, which is to produce something to facilitate the production process. The same way in economic modeling, we use prices, we use quantities of goods, we use models to describe the behavior of buyers and sellers. And so what is the incentive for a buyer to buy and what is the incentive for a seller to sell? And so we create a model that describes the interaction between buyers and sellers, what motivates buyers, what motivates sellers, and in the end, we explain how the interaction between buyers and sellers creates certain outcomes. For example, what we call an equilibrium outcome. Now, outcomes could be that the quantity produced at a given price and the quantity that buyers want to buy at a given price. And so we use models to explain that. Now, in a simplified representation of the economic system, we have what we call a production possibility system, okay? And we have a circular flow that shows the interactions between individuals and within a system. Now, as you can see in the picture here, this is a model of production in economic system, okay? The model produces healthcare and education. As you can see here, there is the concept of opportunity cost. Now, as you can see, suppose you are at a point D, okay? It simply means you produce so much education but so little healthcare. If you are at a point A, you produce so much healthcare and very little education. Now, what it simply means that if you want to go to the point C to produce more education, you have to give up some healthcare. And this is what I talked about, opportunity cost. So the production possibility frontier is a model that illustrates the the problem of scarcity, that under conditions of scarcity, there are opportunity costs. If you want more of one, then have to give up a little bit of something else. And so what you give up is opportunity cost. Like if you have income and you want to go to school, okay, you have to pay tuition. When you pay tuition, then you may not be able to buy the kind of car that you need. You might not be able to wear the number of clothes or the kinds of clothes that you would prefer to wear. So there's an opportunity cost there in terms of you paying tuition. And if you spend your money on meat, you may not have enough money to spend on clothing. So that is the concept of opportunity cost. Now, the economic system operates on a circular flow, okay? You have households, you have firms. Households work for wages, salaries, and benefits, and firms use the labor of households and pay for their services, pay for the services of households, and so the economy goes around in this circular flow. The American economic system is based on what we call free markets. Based on what we call free markets, there are parts of the world where markets are not free. Okay, you don't have that free interaction between producers and buyers, consumers. You do not have it. Okay, the system fixes production and also fixes prices. But in the free market system, price incentive is the driving force. Okay, I could say a market is simply a structure, a system, an avenue for exchange of goods. And in free markets operate through price incentives. Sellers will sell when price is high, and buyers will buy when price is low. And so what you have is an interaction between buyers and sellers that give rise to some kind of a balance or within the system. So the system then operates on the basis of supply and demand. Now, demand simply is the quantity of goods that buyers want to buy at a given price at a particular point in time, while supply is the quantity of goods that sellers want to sell at a given price over a period of time. Okay, so now, according to the law of demand, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. We need to differentiate between demand and quantity demanded. As you can see here, demand is illustrated using what we call a demand schedule, which is this table that shows the quantity of a good that buyers will buy at different prices. Now, when the price is $2, nobody wants to buy anything. When the price is $1.50, 1 unit is bought. When the price is $1, 2 units are bought. And when the price is 50 cents, 3 units are bought. So the law of demand simply shows that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. Okay. All right. Now we have to differentiate between demand and quantity demanded. As you can see, demand depends on price, but also depends on other factors. For example, demand depends on income. Suppose that Apple is, sells for $1 and people buy 10 units. Now, if people's incomes increase, then for $1, buyers will buy more than 10 units. because now they have more income. Now, suppose, for example, that all of a sudden somebody says that Apple cures a disease. What's going to happen is that for that $1, people are going to buy more because Apple improves health. Okay, an apple a day. What do you say? What does it say? An apple a day keeps somebody away from the doctor. All right, and so if that catches on, then people will buy more apple, even though they used to buy 10 apples for $1. Now they will buy 15 because they will stay away from the doctor. And so when that happens, there's going to be what we call a shift. As you can see, the arrow goes to the right, which means that for the same price of $1.50, instead of what we have here at the blue point, it will go up to the red point. The same thing goes. Now, what if there's a reason for people to believe that apples will cause problems? Then people will buy fewer apples and the demand curve will shift to the left. So that helps us to illustrate the difference between quantity demanded and demand. At a price of $1.50, say if we're in B, here we have one apple and at the price of $1.50. In the event that somehow we say that apples are good for health, then this demand curve will shift. This line that you see that coming down here will move to the right. This is why we have this shift. Okay, so there are two different things. A change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. A change in quantity demanded depends strictly on price, while a change in demand is caused by other factors other than price, like change in income, change in attitude and perspectives, or a change in the size of the market. The same thing goes for supply. Okay, we have a supply curve which is positive, which has a positive slope. The higher the price, the more that sellers want to sell. Okay, and the same way as a difference between a change in quantity supplied and a change in supply. What you have here is a change in supply, as opposed to a change in quantity supplied, which depends strictly on price. While a change in supply will be affected by other factors, such as a change in technology. And a change in technology will increase supply. Now, the interaction between buyers and sellers will lead to what we call an equilibrium. So you can see here where demand and supply interact. They meet here. So the equilibrium price is $1 and equilibrium quantity is 10. Okay. There could be, if the price is higher than equilibrium, market forces will force prices down. And if price is below equilibrium, market forces will force the prices so that you achieve the equilibrium at the red point there. Changes in demand or supply would also cause a change in the equilibrium. So you can see here, if there's a decrease in demand, then the equilibrium price will fall from $1 to 75 cents. Okay. The same thing happens if there's a change in supply, equilibrium price will also change. Sometimes there's a simultaneous change in both supply and demand, which will cause equilibrium price to change depending on the relative shifts of supply and demand. All right. So now, do you have any questions for me on the summary lecture on chapters 1 to 3?
Yes. So with the shifting in supply and demand, with the equilibrium shifting as well,
Okay.
the amount of units that are produced will also increase with the price, while if demand falls, supply falls as well with the production quantity.
Yes. The where equilibrium price and quantity will settle will depend on the relative shifts. Okay, if for example demand shifts a lot more than, so let us say the increase in demand is much more than say the increase in supply. Okay, then equilibrium price is going to be higher because the increase in demand. Uh, I think you raised a question that is going to cause me to come up with other interactions. All right. Okay, here we go. As you can see here, the demand curve shifted. Okay, the demand curve shifted. I wish I had the ability to draw here. The demand curve shifted and also the supply curve shifted. Now, what you see here, there's an increase in supply. The left, the
Pardon me,
right,
Professor. I
yes.
don't think screen share is on. We can't see what you're describing.
Oh, Lord have mercy on this child. Okay. Let me bring up the screen share. I'm very, very sorry for that.
No worries.
Uh, okay.
No worries at all.
All right. So you can see here that the supply curve shifted to the right, which is an increase in supply. You can see that from S0 to S1. There's an increase in supply. Okay. But also the demand curve shifted from D0 to D1. So there's an increase in demand. Now, suppose that this increase in demand was a little lower than where it is now. You will see that the equilibrium price will not change from $1. It's possible, right? But because the demand curve shifted a whole lot more than the supply curve shifted, the equilibrium price increased from $1.20 from $1 to $1.20. But it's entirely possible that this shift in demand could have been less. Or it could have been that the shift in supply could have gone further right. And if it goes further right, then the equilibrium price may not change. Now, suppose that the increase in demand was so much lower than what you have here, the increase in supply was a little bit less. The equilibrium price could also increase because the increase in demand is so much higher than the increase in supply. Now, suppose that instead of the supply curve shifting to the right, and you had the supply curve shifting to the left instead, the equilibrium price would even be higher. You get the idea? So where the equilibrium price and quantity settle depend on the relative amounts of shift in supply and demand. Excuse me. It might also depend on what we call the elasticity, okay, which we'll get to later on, where if the demand curve was so steep, uh, the point at which the equilibrium price and quantity will settle will depend on the steepness of the supply and demand curves. And we will get to that. And thank you for your question. I'm going to try to get an illustration where I could show you this. All right, so any other question? All right, I'm going to make a note of your question, and I'm going to pull up, before we start the next session, I'm going to pull up an illustration where you're going to see these differences in interaction and how they affect the final equilibrium depending on relative shifts. I'll make a note. Okay, any other questions? All right, hearing none, thank you all for coming in. And so I'll see you next Tuesday.
That's it? Oh, nice. Okay.
Thank you.
All
Good
right.
evening, Professor.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a